So you're looking for house ideas in Final Fantasy XIV, and despite finding all kinds of gorgeous builds, you're left wondering, where's the rest of it? If that's you, then you're not alone. One of the biggest complaints I see in the housing community is that a lot of the builds that get featured close off way too much housing space to be viable for your average player. Luckily for you, you don't have to cut off entire floors to build a beautiful house, and today I'm gonna prove that. Hi, I'm Galatunia, and I've built several houses over the years that use multiple floors, so I know a thing or two about maximizing your space without sacrificing cool details, and I'll show you the secrets behind my work, from floor plan to completion, using this small Gothic home I designed for a friend as an example. Let's go! Hello and welcome back, beautiful blooms. The secret to designing a build that uses all the floors in your house boils down to 2 points. The first is understanding your house's layout, and the second is to think big. Let's pull up a floor plan to explore that first point. Every house size in the game comes with its own advantages and quirks that you have to build around. Small houses in particular have these weird proportions to work with, and they're weird because the ground floor is only half the length of an apartment. And when you block out the staircase like I'm going to do on the screen here, you'll see that you have a square to build in rather than a rectangle, which that can cause more problems than you think it would, especially since the dev team insists that your front door should be dead center of the south wall. And speaking of doors, the northeast doorway that leads to the basement stairs is the bane of my existence. It's so far in that corner that it limits what you can build along the north wall, and then anything you do with the east wall can't poke out into the stairwell or it's gonna look awkward and block access to the basement. So more often than not, if you want to make something that requires depth, like custom windows or kitchens, then you're probably going to have to build those on the west wall. It's not a rule you have to follow, but that's the path of least resistance. Now, that all being said, small houses have an advantage no other house size does, and that's the basement. Because the ground floor is only half the size of the basement, you can take advantage of this. See that chandelier? Anything you glitch to the south of that chandelier won't interfere with the rest of the ground floor. So you have a lot of freedom in the southern half of your basement, including placing furniture items closer to your in-game door than you could normally. This makes custom entrances more approachable in a small house than they are in any other housing size in the game. So in summary, if you want to design a small house and use both floors, then your best bet is to work with these quirks in mind rather than against them, which means planning your design around the western wall and the northeast doorway on the ground floor. Doing that will ensure you maximize your space without sacrificing opportunity for some cool custom elements. To give you an example of what that might look like for you, here's the floor plan I made for my friend's house. The entrance was kept relatively simple, with a kitchen in the southwest corner. I knew I wanted to create a custom window over the kitchen sink that needed to use some wide items, namely these Cosmos partitions turned around on their side, so that corner was the only place I felt the kitchen could go. On the flip side of that, the north wall holds the living area and some custom wall designs that didn't require a lot of depth to make. Which, if you're interested in what I used to make those custom panels, they're made out of dyed Cosmos partitions too, but those are flat so that they're facing you. And because of that, they're very thin. They didn't need the depth like they did for the kitchen window. And then of course we have Cosmos decorations too, and both items are super cheap dungeon drops. And finally, on the eastern wall of the ground floor is a fireplace flanked by bookshelves. It fit the theme we were going for, and it could be scooted pretty close to the wall without jutting into the basement stairs. Which, speaking of the stairs, the stairway was left minimal because at the time of the video, you only get 200 item slots in small houses, so I thought it was best to reserve those for bigger spaces that would see more use. And truth be told, you really don't need much detail in a hallway anyway to give it a proper facelift. All you need is a simple console table and a window of your choice to make the hallway feel loved and flood it with some light during the daylight hours. Yes, even if it's flanked by a devilishly cute plushie. And finally, that brings us to the basement. The basement houses both a big bedroom and an office space for the character this house was for. You might be surprised to learn that this area not only uses the majority of the space in the basement, but it only took 81 slots to build it. That's right, 81 item slots. You wouldn't know it from the amount of detail we managed to squish into the room, but you can recreate a similar space in your apartment. No house required. And like I promised at the start of the video, here's a look at just how little space was closed off to make this room possible. Even with floating furniture from the basement to make custom counters and end tables for the ground floor, I still decorated the majority of the basement and left very little unused. So while I know there's some enthusiasts out there that want to use every inch of space from wall to wall, I'm showing you this behind the scenes footage to make a point. If you're willing to carve out just a tiny fraction of the larger areas in your house, like in your basement, then you allow yourself the freedom of actually getting to decorate those areas while maintaining a healthy item slot budget, which will result in a more beautiful house altogether. Though that begs the question, doesn't it? How do you keep an item slot budget? That's where my second housing secret comes in, and right before we get into it, now is a great time to remind you that if you've been enjoying the videos so far, to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my future guides and projects. Subscribing helps small channels like mine a lot because we're locked out of most of YouTube's features until we hit certain milestones, so I'd appreciate it. Now let's talk about the second housing secret: thinking big. If you want to use all the floors in your house and maintain a relatively high level of detail, then you have to think big. But what does that mean? Well, thinking big can be as literal as using large furniture pieces to cover as much space as possible, which that was done in this design. Large items like the Hanish bookshelf partition and the new kitchen cabinet item fill the space while providing plenty of color and character and details that add to the vibe of the home without having to glitch to add more. Thinking big can also be more abstract by considering the overall theme of your home and the kinds of design elements that fit into that theme. The unfortunate truth is that Final Fantasy XIV's housing system caters to some themes more than others, and depending on what you want your house to look like, that's going to dictate whether or not you get the luxury of using all the floors in your home, or if you're going to have to make some compromises between architectural details and lived-in clutter. And yes, I know it's sad I have to call that a luxury. It shouldn't be this way, but it is, and we have to work with what we have until we get more item slots to cover more space. A good example of this are modern builds, whether they're akin to real-world housing designs or something more futuristic. Those require more item slots to pull off because we just don't have enough furniture in game that fits those themes. So designers have to make custom furniture themselves through glitching, and that costs extra item slots, which means to keep rooms looking nice and detailed, you end up sacrificing some floor space for them and squish them in, if not cut off entire floors altogether. Now, thankfully, the dev team has been slowly adding more items to make modern builds more accessible without glitching, but it could easily still take a few years before we reach that point. On the other hand, if you want your house to look more traditional or Gothic or fantasy leaning, then you have so many more options available to you. For example, the base game partitions come with all kinds of details that trend towards traditional design, like wainscoting or a chair railing, as some of you might know it better as. And most wallpapers you can use on them really lean into that traditional aesthetic as well. There's also tons of furniture pieces that have really ornate details like swooping curves and big bold patterns and engravings on them. So picking a theme that does well with base game furniture is going to go a long way in letting you use all the floors in your home. Now, putting all of that into practice, for this design, my friend wanted an offshoot of a chateau, or a small castle, and they wanted Gothic details and colors to give it a personal touch. We were really looking to Ishgard for a lot of the inspiration here. So that opened the door to build something that not only took advantage of the more ornate furniture the game has tons of, but it also let me use design elements that favors bigger, more open space, like this high ceiling. I usually advise against custom ceilings if you want to fill both floors of your home because they tend to be item slot heavy, but this one was doable because of the Phasmascape Sky items. Azure Sky in this particular instance. These Phasmascapes are wall-mounted items, so they're easy to place, and I used them to create a coffered ceiling. I then floated Alzadal's treasure rugs that just so happened to fit perfectly within the inner square of the Phasmascapes. This created a richly detailed, fancy ceiling that draws the eye up. And as a bonus, the Phasmascapes come with their own lighting and camera collision, so I didn't have to spend any extra items accounting for both of those things, like you normally would with a more sleek and modern custom ceiling. And having a high, extravagant ceiling like this fits the rich Gothic theme we were going for while playing into the natural height of the house. And in a similar vein, while I didn't create a custom ceiling in the basement, I did add a custom crown molding along it by floating glade half partitions to match the blank glade partitions used in the room. This was done to make the room look more unified despite using several different types of partitions throughout it. And on that note, it's a perfect transition into a bonus third housing secret. Come here, come closer. If you're going to glitch, then make those glitches count. I've seen people use 50 item slots just to make kitchen cabinets. Not the whole kitchen, mind you, just the cabinets. I've seen people use half their item slot budget to create custom walls, only to realize they can't furnish the room they made the way they want because that would leave the rest of the house unfinished. Hi, that last one's me. I've made that mistake before. Now, at the end of the day, you should design your house the way you want to. But depending on the goals that you have for your house, you might need to reconsider if using a fourth of your total item budget on a custom couch is actually worth it. This kitchen window I made is a perfect example of this. This window was originally designed using 12 item slots and involved using multiple Reverie wall shelves and dance poles to create a custom window pane, and it looked great. However, as the house progressed, I quickly realized I needed to shave some item slots down from something to be able to finish, which resulted in the window you see on the screen now. Instead of the wall shelves and dance poles, I used 3 imitation moonlit windows. Doing so not only made a better window that fit the theme, but it gave me back 4 item slots to use elsewhere for a total of 7 slots. I can't math, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, for a total of 8 item slots instead of 12. Which that doesn't sound like a lot, but remember when I said that the basement bedroom only took 81 item slots? I lied. It's actually 77 slots, or really close to that number. I forget the exact number. But either way, it's even less. What happened was when I was finished with the house, there were roughly 3 or 4 item slots left over, which allowed my friend to add in some clutter of their choosing. And that clutter brought this space to life. And that clutter was a direct result of changing the original kitchen window plan and taking those 4 slots back. My point is that every item adds up. So, if you're wanting to decorate all the floors in your house, try not to get swept away and glitch furniture for the sake of glitching. Sometimes, keeping it simple and letting the furniture you pick speak for itself really is the best way to go. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and I hope you feel empowered to decorate your hard-won house in a way that best suits you. If you have any questions about this particular design or Final Fantasy XIV's housing system, then please feel free to ask me in the comments, because many of you have already given fantastic suggestions for future guides, and I promise that I am listening. I've got a nice big list of topics to cover, and today's video was a direct result of those suggestions. Now, it may take me some time to put together a video, and I may not get to every topic out there, but I'm looking forward to doing the best that I can. Now, that being said, if you need something to watch while you wait, I'll have a playlist featuring my previous housing builds up on the screen for you to binge, as well as some art vlogs if you'd like something a little more personal and get to know me as a person. And if you're interested in updates for my ongoing projects, then I have a free Patreon community where I post those, and sometimes extra screenshots that don't make it in the final video. So, until next time, see you then!